Hello to you all, my fellow woodworkers out there. Jeremy Mack here again with another video hoping to help you get informed about working with walnut wood, black walnut wood for your next project. Now, if you're like me, cost is unfortunately an object that I think about as I consider each project. And here in upstate New York, black walnut wood is usually just about double the cost of woods, other wonderful hardwoods like oak or ash, maple. So unfortunately, we do need to factor in cost as well as passing that cost on to clients who might purchase a piece of furniture from myself or from you all. So let's dig in together here and explore a couple of different facts about black walnut trees and working with black walnut, finishing black walnut. And hopefully you can come across as informed to your clientele, which is very important and beneficial for you. And you can walk away having learned something and enjoy another bit of video here with me. Generally, about 1% of the trees, the population of trees in forests in the United States is of black walnut wood, American walnut, which naturally being 1%, much less common than many of the other woods, softwoods or hardwoods. So that's one reason why it's a bit more expensive. Walnut trees grow to about 100 feet or so in height, they can. And their canopy is not a high one, it's generally a bit lower one. And because of that, the branches start to come out lower. Because of that, when the wood's milled and processed, you are able to see some beautiful texture inside the woods. It is the heartwood, the deeper colored wood on the inside of the trees, much more beautiful than most other woods in my opinion. It is a rich, figuratively creative, and interesting wood to look at once milled and put into your furniture. Now, because the canopy grows a bit lower than in some other hardwood trees, it is very difficult to find sources for boards that are longer than 16 foot. From what I've found, 6 foot, 8 foot, 10 foot, 12 foot, pretty easy to come by when you're purchasing your lumber, choosing your lumber. But if you are looking specifically for walnut that is beyond that 16 foot ceiling, you're going to have a difficult time, unfortunately. Now, on top of the fact that walnut is just a beautiful wood, it is resistant to decay, is resistant to bacteria and fungal infections more so than many other woods. And walnut trees produce a chemical called juglone, and it is kind of an antibacterial, antibiotic type of chemical substance within the wood and within the little nuts, the walnuts, and can be found throughout. So it can elicit an allergic response to people, which we'll chat about in just a moment a little more when we chat about working with walnut. But it's an interesting part of walnut wood just because it makes it more resistant to decay, whether it's alive or whether it's slicing in your project. Now, when you are at your lumber source and you're choosing which pieces of lumber, which boards of lumber to purchase, there's a number of things you want to be looking for and considering, not just if you've got a nicely sliced or maybe a plain piece of wood, and that's something that's milled, something that's dried well. You've got, generally speaking, a choice between air dried versus kiln dried. If you're able to purchase air dried, if you have that available to you, that's definitely a superior resource. Not by too much. It'll have a little more contrast, a little more color within the wood. It also is a little less susceptible to chips. And it'll bend a little better as opposed to the kiln dried. Kiln dried is able to be processed quickly and brought out to the resources, the sellers for lumber. So that will make it a little less expensive, which is fantastic. And you're still going to get an absolutely beautiful, luxurious product from kiln dried or air dried. Walnut is an intermediate grain wood. You've heard of open grain, you've heard of closed grain wood like maple. Oak is an open grain where you look closely, you can really see closely and see if the pores are quite open to you, the grain's open to you. As I work with walnut, I always consider it an open grain wood, except for when I'm working and building things that you will be eating out of a bowl of something, a cutting board. Walnut wood makes some of the best cutting boards, as well as the most profitable cutting boards that you can buy. That end grain facing toward the knife will dull it a little less. Now, generally, you wouldn't want to have an open grain wood used for something like a cutting board because it can hold some germs, but walnut is one of those exceptions. Now, when you're there, you're picking out your pieces of lumber, of black walnut. try to find generally the most dark, most rich colored, and the most aesthetically pleasing. I like some of the sapwood visible. So I've got a bunch of different samples here. So on the good side of the wood, which is common when you're sourcing, you'll have a good side and a not as great side. On the good side, you're gonna find about 90% of heartwood, the dark wood here, and 10% or so of sapwood visible, soft or slightly softer. This is the structural grain of wood, is the heartwood, the dark. When you're purchasing your wood, try to get as much of the dark as you're able. Some of the pieces back here, you can see this is the front, but this piece here is completely hardwood, which is kind of what you want to generally, this is what most people would find desirable. I like a lot of the sapwood visible, or some of it, because I think that adds to the unique gradation that you don't get as much from most of the other species of wood. Now, you may see some knots here and there. That's something that you want to avoid, just because it may result in slight subtle warping later, but you can structurally make each piece of furniture or boarding, whatever you're working with, a little more structurally sound with some supportive pieces. And well-kilned, well-dried wood, even if there's not, it should be pretty stable long-term for centuries in your walnut selections in the wood. Now you're gonna get the dark, rich aesthetic that you don't normally get from oak, and some of the beautiful curling and the way the light produces a sheen off of it. You're not gonna find that in most other woods. And that's one of the additional reasons why I believe walnut with the natural quality, the natural aesthetic, is well worth any expense. So walnut is a wood that is easy to work with among the hardwoods. It's not going to destroy your tools and your blades and dull them as quickly as many other hardwoods. It's about a 1010 on the Janko hardness rating scale, a little harder than cherry, a little less hard than maple or oak, but they're all close, and it's definitely a hardwood that's going to be kind of your tools. You can curve it, you can bend it, and you can stain it to be beautiful. And while I'm discussing processing and working with the wood, because of that, the chemical substance that I mentioned briefly earlier, the jiglone, you want to make sure that you're wearing a face mask whenever you're working with walnut especially. Some people do have an allergic reaction if they're sensitive to it, respiratory allergic reaction, or sensitivity to it. So if you're aerating it by sanding it especially, you want to make sure you're wearing an N95 or an N100 mask. This is one of my favorites. I'll leave a link here to this specific mask. You can pop out the cartridges on the inside of this guy. It's by Trend, and this one is an N100, so it'll filter out significantly more than N95. So you're closer to 100%, not quite 100 even though it's labeled that. Don't let that distract you. Just as a side note here, if you are working with anything that produces fumes, polish, oil-based stains, anything with a higher VOC rating, you want to wear a mask more along the lines of this. And these are P-rated cartridges and okay for fumes. Fumes are different than what you're bringing into the air with sawdust, which is kind of visible particles. Obviously invisible with fumes. You're working with oils and these are replaceable cartridges depending on your source. I'll leave a link to what I've got here for you. But this is what you want to be working with when you're using, when you're finishing and polishing. Always keep your masks in a Ziploc bag. I put a little paper towel in there just in case I get sweaty, which is fairly common. And your masks do breathe a bit, even if you're not the one breathing them through. So put them in a mask. You don't want to get dust on these, and you want them to last a long time. So walnut finishes beautifully when you're done with your project and you're ready to put some stain, oil-based or water-based on it, or not. It will oxidize beautifully, process called oxidation, and that'll produce a nice sheen on it called a patina. It'll warm it up a bit over at the time as it ages. And what I always recommend and what I work with is a oil-based finishes rather than water-based. Anything that soaks into the surface of your wood is going to soak in and stay there and make the wood a bit more durable and will minimize any damage done from scratches, dents, things like that. So oil-based for sure. I love using Watco's Danish oil. Simple. I do 2 coats of this and sometimes a wax coat on top of it, a paste wax. Tongue oil finish can also be beautifully accentuating your walnut. And that's all going to bring out those grains, increase the contrast, bring out the warmth a little bit, especially as it ages. It's going to be a gorgeous project. Now, I do not recommend fillers, grain fillers, because that can create a look of oak that's stained dark to emulate walnut. Now, we're working with pure walnut. We're going to go keep it as natural as possible. There are some beautiful projects made of oak stained darker, and that's fantastic. But I don't really recommend working that way. I don't personally work that way. Just working with walnut is a different beast. Now, I do recommend always preconditioning any wood. This is a nice product. There's many preconditioners out there that'll work. So that'll minimize the splotchiness that can come from even a subtly more absorbent portion of the wood. Some areas are going to absorb a little more, especially if you get some contrast in the burls and twirls, sapwood. But you want to accentuate that natural contrast. You want to accentuate the warmth and the color and the more absorbent, less areas. But a preconditioner will make anything like a Danish oil go over it a little more evenly, a little more aesthetically pleasing. All right, let's talk very briefly about care and maintenance for your walnut furniture, especially so you have some information to bring to your clients for their piece to be cared for over the years that they've purchased from you. Keep the piece from getting wet if you can. If you get it wet, if they get it wet, dry it off quickly as possible. If you get it dirty, a little mild soap and water solution to clean the piece. Get it dry as quickly as you're able there. Now, if you have a piece that's been finished with what I've recommended, tongue oil, paste the wax on that, or linseed oil, or the Watco Danish oil, you may need to apply that. You may need to advise that your client reapply that every year. Some people advise once a month for reapplying the oil, or every 3 months for the oil or the wax. I think that's gratuitous. I would say once every 1 or 2 years seem to be all right. But reapplying the oil can just reinvigorate those natural colors and the warmth and nourishes the wood. Furniture polish would be okay for something that's got poly on it or something that's just been sealed and coated. Now, don't forget, walnut wood will be affected by UV light, by the sunlight. If it's placed near a window or something, it will lighten over age, which may add to the aesthetic appeal. If you like a wood that looks a bit lighter, try to keep it away from the window. That's going to be probably the best solution. Well, friends, I hope you found some of that information helpful, especially as you go forward making a decision on whether you're going to work with walnut wood or choosing whatever lumber you're going to be working with for your project. Hopefully you can have that information just at least make you more knowledgeable about whatever medium you're going to be working with, what species you're going to be working with. I did forget to mention my friend here. This is a walnut log. Well, he had challenged me earlier to try to make this video in under 5 minutes, and I don't think I did it. Did I do it? I don't know if I did that. I kind of doubt it. I'm sorry. Next time. There's just too much good about walnut wood to keep it under 5 minutes. Sorry. But I hope you found some of this content helpful, guys. Don't forget to hit like on the video. That helps keep the channel alive, and subscribe, okay? Happy woodworking, everyone.